This is the awkward moment where we just have to blabber for a few seconds to make sure we're live so we don't miss any good stuff. Ladles and jelly spoons of the interwebs, welcome to another 10K Collective live interview. Today we're talking about SEO. For those of us who've got direct-to-consumer websites, actually anyone who's got any kind of website, I guess, but particularly in the e-commerce space, DTC, it's one thing to have a website, and of course, as we all know, it's really another thing to get actual, traffic. So that's what we're talking about. We're welcoming Farzad from Respona here today to talk that through. So, Farzad, thank you so much for coming on live with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm
No
excited.
problem. Yeah, looking forward to it. Always SEO is always incredibly important to revisit and get right. So if you are watching live or on the replay, feel free to use the interactive nature of social media to ask any questions you've got. I will keep an eye on any comments that come through, and if we can weave them into the show, we will. Otherwise, we will be able to come back on them after the live. I guess I'll keep an eye on that for that, and I'll go and pester Farzad to come and give you any responses. So just checking to see if we're all working. Looks like we're all good. So Farzad, you get to record our podcast episodes.
Yes, sir. Let's roll.
Okay, good. Let's get the camera back to me, and here we go. Ladles and jelly spoons, boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers. Today we're going slightly outside our box because most Amazon sellers have their own direct-to-consumer site, but in my experience, it's not very successful, if I may say so. So today we're going to try and fix that, particularly getting traffic to your e-commerce site and getting it affordably is the big challenge. And today, to help us with that, is Farzad Rashidi from Respona. Respona is a link building and digital PR platform that helps e-commerce businesses get organic traffic from Google. Really important stuff. Farzad, first of all, warm welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. All pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me on the show, Michael.
What a charming response. And the pleasure's all mine as well. So um, let's talk about this then. So first of all, what are we talking about? We're talking SEO, organic traffic. Let's just make sure that we understand what we're talking about here. What is it that
Sure.
you are addressing, and what is commonly referred to as SEO but is not, in your opinion? Let's define this
Of
cleanly.
course. Absolutely. So, Michael, a lot of Amazon sellers who are listening to this show, obviously, I'm sure they're doing very well with Amazon. Obviously, you are reliant on them up to a certain degree. And when it comes to sales and obviously, working with their algorithm to make sure that you show up for your target keywords. Now, a lot of sellers don't want to give a cut to Amazon and don't want to be entirely reliant and build their business on top of another business. So lots of folks, what we've seen is that they start another e-commerce store of their own. So you may be using Shopify or some other tool to kind of have your own store and have your own brand and have a direct way of selling to consumers. Unfortunately, however, mentioned Michael, a lot of people fail on that avenue because they fail to attract enough visitors to their website to actually be able to drive some traffic. So what we really focus on at Respona, we are a software company. So we are basically providing all the tool sets that you need in order to actually promote that D2C website. In this episode, I'm looking to mainly talk about what are some of the ways on how you be able to sort of build the right site structure first and write the right types of pieces of content. And then we could talk about hopefully in a secondary episode how you can actually go out and promote it in terms of gaining some backlinks and to your website and actually get it up in the search results.
Great. So I guess the end result we're wanting is free traffic then. So by the sound of it, Google traffic is very straightforward. So you mentioned structure, content, and then backlinks. So
Mm-hmm.
I suppose we're talking about on-site SEO. Is that the right phrase? That the stuff that you do before you bother emailing everybody and saying, "Oi, give me a backlink to my wonderful content." So
That's right.
so how do we go about this then? What's the structured way of doing
Sure.
this?
Absolutely. So just to give you a little background here, Michael, and for folks who are listening, I actually joined as the first marketing hire at our parent company called Visme. Michael, have you heard of Visme before?
Haven't come across them, I must confess.
No worries, no problem. Have you heard of tools like Canva or Prezi, one of these tools for
Yes, for
design?
Canva I've used every 5 seconds, so that's
All right,
glad I used
perfect.
that. Yeah.
That's great. Canva is a great platform. We are I would say, a B2B version of Canva in a way, if I want to put it very simply. So we cater predominantly to SMB enterprise companies. So I joined an organization as a first marketing hire, and there were a bunch of engineers and designers that put together this product, and they were like, hey, we're a bootstrap company, we have very limited budget, and go out there and sell this thing. So I'm faced with two problems. One is paid ads. So as I'm sure lots of folks, especially in the e-commerce business, have noticed, that and COVID sort of catalyzed the whole I would say process. But paid ads is not really known to be a very scalable channel when it comes to building a business, because the cost per acquisition is growing very rapidly, and basically catches up with your LTV pretty quickly over time. And also there's a diminishing ROI. So what that means is that when you double your budget on a paid ad, doesn't mean that you're going to double your conversion. So at some point that it becomes more expensive to start acquiring customers. So that's not a very scalable channel. Obviously it works for certain brands and certain companies. And if you play your cards right, but it's a very expensive way to get some eyeballs. And it gets only more expensive by the day because they use a bidding system. And also there's cold outreach, but unfortunately, especially if you're selling an affordable product, like for us, Visme was a software company, and our subscriptions were like $15 a month. It's not something you go and sell door to door, right? So we wanted to quickly figure out a way and how be able to sort of build a scalable channel that we could bring in organic traffic to our website. And that sort of triggered us to start focusing more on our SEO. And right now, just to give you a little sense of scale, Visme is now getting over 3 million monthly organic traffic. And if we were to bring in that same level of traffic using ads, that would have cost us about $1.5 million a month worth of paid advertising. And that we're not getting for free, quote unquote. Obviously, it's not entirely free because we have writers and marketing team that actually manages that process, but it's nowhere near $1.5 million a month. So the process of actually building the right website, that sort of starts with keyword research. And that's one of the, I would say, the most important step when it comes to building a website, is that a lot of people just assume things, and then they go out and slap a bunch of pieces of content on their blog, and then they build a bunch of landing pages, and they're like, okay, I'm done with my website now. And they put it out there and it's going to be crickets. And that's exactly what we did at Visme. We started investing a lot of time and resources building these content pages and pillar pages and whatnot. And it was nothing. It was absolutely cricket. So what we basically soon realized was that first thing we have to do is to figure out a way to build content pieces that are prioritized for our business. And that there's quite a scientific process how you'd be able to do that. And it's not just writing from the heart. So first step is to put yourself in shoes of a consumer. So are your customers aware of the problems that they're trying to resolve? And if so, are they actively looking for solutions or products on Google in order to find a product like yours? If you answered yes to both of these questions, that means that you need to have a DTC site and focus on your SEO. If answer is no to any of these questions, stick with Amazon, stick with whatever is working. Don't waste your time in SEO. All right. So very simple. So step one is to figure out, hey, is SEO the right channel for my e-commerce product? The answer to that is yes. Now let's figure out a way and what key terms we're going to go after and how we're going to get it up in the search results. So any product you sell has a customer journey. So, right, yeah, everybody's heard of the consideration stage and the awareness stage, and you kind of get to the decision stage. Same goes for SEO. So let's say I have a mattress e-commerce store, right? And I sell on Amazon. I'm like, hey, I sell mattresses, and these are all expensive, and I don't want to give away cut to Amazon. So I want to have my own D2C site, be able to upsell better and have a sense of control. So first thing to do is that if your parent keyword is mattress, it's a very competitive, huge keyword that you probably will never be able to rank for, right? Let's be realistic here. So one of the first steps we want to do is in terms of keyword research is to understand what keywords we need to go after. And there are a lot of on-page SEO tools that help you do that. And that's they're called Ahrefs, and that's the software we use ourselves. There's also a great tool called SEMrush. There are also some cheaper free alternatives as well, like Uber suggests you can start with if you're concerned with the budget and there's a limited budget. I would start with that. And first, you can run that parent keyword through one of these tools, and it gives you a gazillion different search suggestions. And that's sort of a starting point. So like, for example, how do I pick the right mattress? Or what are some of the best like pillow covers? I don't know. I'm not in the mattress industry, but there's going to be a gazillion different keywords. Now, what we want to do is to help prioritize some of these. And the way we prioritize keywords based on a little formula I developed, which I call the opportunity score. And that is basically based on ranking these keywords based on 3 factors. 1, how the amount of volume you get. So obviously the higher, the better. 2 is the amount of competition that's already for that keyword. So the lower, the better. And highest commercial intent. So if somebody's looking for, hey, what are some of the best jobs in the mattress industry? It's not quite as commercially valuable for us as, hey, what are some of the best mattresses to purchase? You know what I mean? So we want to have a sense of priority for these keywords, and we create a formula. Each one of these metrics correlate with a metric that these SEO tools will give you. You pop it into this formula, which I call the opportunity score, and then you sort descending on a little spreadsheet. Now you got a handful of keywords that you can go after. Now the step-by-step instruction to the process for how I go about this is actually described with screenshots in the ebook that I wrote, My Days in Visme. Folks, when I learn more about exactly how to go about it and kind of step-by-step follow through, it's difficult to do that in a podcast format because I can't share my screen and I show you around. Just to Google Visme marketing strategy. It's a free ebook. You can download it, pass it on to your marketing team, and let them kind of follow through that process of identifying the right keyword first. And then the second step would be to actually how to create these web pages and taking things forward, which I can talk about here in a minute.
Wow, so lots to take on board. I guess that a lot of that sounds like pretty good common sense. I guess common sense isn't necessarily common. Just because it should be easy doesn't mean that most of us don't skip it. Like for the podcast, I have a terrible habit of not doing any keyword research and just taking guess based on the quality of what they offer and whether I'm interested. And I try and make sure it's relevant, but I haven't done any Google keyword research, which explains why the podcast is doing well and our SEO is horrible. So I can attest to that. Just that doing things that way does not work. I'm with you on that. It's one of my sort of big projects that I need to get around to, just like a lot of Amazon sellers have not got around to it with their DTC site, I think. So tell me about that. Let's talk about the reality then. One of the things that gets in the way of doing this stuff is just time. So how do we get this process to work, be effective and yet efficient, i.e. we can actually get down to it with a small team or maybe even a solopreneur?
Sure. I mean, what I was explaining takes 10 minutes to do. So we haven't sent a rocket to the moon yet, right? All we were doing is to figure out, hey, what are some of the terms that people are searching in our space and how we go about prioritizing them. Now, one thing I forgot to mention as I was explaining is there's a metric called keyword difficulty that these tools give you. And as a rule of thumb, you want to ignore keyword difficulties that have a higher score of your compared to your domain rating. And it's a very technical way of saying, hey, don't shoot for the stars when it comes to SEO. Start from some low hanging fruit, some lower volume keywords that have lower competition, and work your way up as the website starts trickling, getting some traffic, right? So meaning that if you started a mattress company, don't go compete with Casper and Purple from day one. Start from some of the smaller mom and pop stores that are trying to rank for these really long tail variations. So that once you go through that process, you automatically do that. So once you throw out keywords that have very high competitiveness, then you kind of sort of start from a ground that's reasonable to start. Now, after we have a list of keywords, now depending on the amount of resources you have, or you're just a one-man show, okay, great. Let's go down the list, take each one of these keywords, run it through a little incognito tab of your browser through Google, and see what's some of the content types that come up with that keyword. So if somebody's looking for, hey, how to pick the right pillow cover, they're likely at the awareness stage. So they're looking for a blog article that's educational, that's explaining, hey, how to pick the right pillow cover. So don't insert plug in your product too much. Don't write 200-word articles either. Go and actually create a comprehensive guide on pillow covers and how you pick the right one that actually adds value, right? And that's something that 99% of companies that do content marketing don't do. So that automatically puts you in the top 1% of content in terms of content quality, which is not enough to get you up in the search results, but that's the requirement to start. And you go down to keywords, and depending on the intent of that keyword, which Google literally tells you, if it's a blog post, 7 out of 10 search results on the top one page are blog articles, that means you probably need to create a guide. Or if there's, hey, best mattresses, probably a listicle, right? So you're creating a sales page now that doesn't explain the history of mattresses, right? You're directly trying to sell a product. So depending on the user intent for each one of the keywords that now you have a prioritized list for, then you create a corresponding page. And that's normally step 2 when it comes to building the right website.
Okay, so it sounds like you're looking at the competition not so much to copy them necessarily, but to see what kind of result Google thinks that keyword implies, and
That's
then
right.
make sure you go along with the hint. Everyone's got a list, create a list. So I guess what you're saying is don't be trying to be different in a
No,
sort of clever way. Interesting. So we're not going to stand out because of that. What does help us sort of stand out?
sure.
I guess I'm thinking a bit like an Amazon seller here, I guess. But what helps us stand out? If we've got, say, the first few organic results on the page 1, I guess that implies we've got to be able to rank in position 1 to 3 in the first place. How do we even get ourselves ranked, I guess, is the key question that everyone's
That is a
asking.
great question. Absolutely. So, first of all, when it comes to creating the content type, don't get too creative on that, just simply because Google runs millions of A/B tests every second for that keyword that you're looking at. And they found that these are the ones that get the most amount of clicks. They have a pretty good understanding of user intent. So, that means once you understand the type of content the users are looking for, now if you really want to stand out, create a better piece of content that's already that compared to what's already out on the web for that target keyword of yours, right? So meaning that if you're creating like how do I pick the right pillow covers, understand some ways on how you can imply the most amount of information in the shortest amount of words possible, and however way you can get around creating and structuring that piece of content. That's really entirely up to you. It's important not to get too bogged down the technicalities when it comes to writing that content. You want to focus entirely on user base, right? So everything, all the nerdiness happens before you start writing. So picking the right keyword prioritization and finding out the user intent. And once you have the target keyword, then write from the heart that section. Then put yourself in the shoes of a reader, understand exactly what they're trying to accomplish. Now, once you put together that piece of content, you're going to be in the top 1%, I promise you. But here's the problem. When you look up, how do I pick the right pillow cover? There's millions, if not billions, of web pages competing for that same keyword. And let's say you're in the top 1% in terms of quality of content. Your content you wrote is optimized. It provides good information. Your site loads fast, is responsive. All the on-page side of things are good. Then you're still going to be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, even if you're in the top 1%, just because there's so many other people trying to rank for that keyword. And that's sort of the where the backlinks come from. And that's something we learned the hard way. It's the really only way you can actually get your content pieces up in the search results for competitive terms.
Okay, interesting. So it's quite sobering, but I guess that makes Amazon look quite kind of user friendly or seller friendly, because there might only be, so, 1,000 or 200 or even, if you're lucky, 100 competitive results as opposed to 100,000.
That's right.
So you've talked about, the keyword research, how to prioritize one, which, by the way, sounds extremely similar to how I'd prioritize going after a keyword market on Amazon, except that if I'm going to commit to ordering, $5,000 worth of product from China to give it a test, I might give it a little bit more of a thorough look than if I'm writing a 1,000-word article. But nevertheless, same idea, so search volume versus competition, right? And that sweet spot between. But one thing that I think I know that we do extraordinarily badly at Amazing FBA, which is at least not an e-commerce site, is that we have a terrible, terrible site structure. There's lots of, I think, interesting content from um, actually it's probably badly written but linked to great stuff. So I think the podcast interviews are good. We spend a lot of time on that. Our show notes are probably pretty scanty, but we have just tons of stuff there, but it's very badly structured. Now I imagine an e-commerce site, when you have hundreds and hundreds of product detail pages, potentially with thousands if you've got variations, color, sizes, whatever, that could be a bit of a mess for Google to make sense of. So tell me a bit about site structure. We talked about keywords, we talked about the related content with them.
Sure.
How do we create a bigger picture that is not a
Mm-hmm.
garbled mess?
Exactly. So when it comes to an e-commerce store, first thing you do, if you've done it wrong, go delete all the pages, delete all the content that's getting zero traffic, has zero backlinks. And that's something a lot of people don't want to do. just do it. Those are just wasting space, wasting your crawl budget, and it's doing no good to anyone. Okay. So if you've already started doing things wrong, start from scratch. And normally what you want to focus on, and again, this is something that it's going to take me a heck of a lot more than 5 minutes to go through, for the remainder of this episode. But what you want to do is to take a look at a silo structure. So if you sell, for example, different kinds of nail polish, and if you sell different kinds of mattresses, create different silos for each one. So each one has a hub page, which is what we call the money page. That's where you sell your product. And then each one of these hub pages has a category of content around them. So you're basically writing pieces about nail polish, and then you go through the same process of running that parent keyword, identifying search items, and going and creating content pieces corresponding to the user intent. So what you want to do is to first go ahead and create a money page or landing page for the products that you're selling. And depending on the category that each one is, you want to create a silo of content for each one. And that's a very basic silo structure for any e-commerce site that I would recommend that's just getting started.
Nice. Okay. So if I understand, you got your product detail page is what you call the hub page, and I guess that there's lots of words and images and whatever will induce better conversion rates there.
That's right.
But you may be getting traffic from somebody that's slightly lower buyer intent, right? If you're selling nail polish, what's the best nail polish for, I don't know, broken nails or something? That's quite a specific long tail keyword. So I guess, that shows a certain degree of specificity, but I'm not saying how can I buy one. So I guess maybe you have a comparison chart, and then the comparison chart would click through to various different product detail pages. Is that what you do, something like that?
No, so normally you create a blog, and each blog has different silos of content. So you got a silo for nail polish, and then you create content pieces on that blog that's talking about how do I pick the right nail polish for broken nails. And then from within that content, you explain exactly how do you pick the right nail polish. And then from that page, you link, and this is what we call an internal link, to your money page. So you're like, hey, by the way, if you want to purchase nail polishes, here's a bunch of nail polishes that we have that you can purchase, right? So what happens now over time, you're creating topical authority for that parent keyword. So that, for example, just to give you an example, if we go in Google presentation software right now in Google and open a little incognito tab, just go ahead and Google presentation software. There's about 3.5 billion search results for that keyword. And what do you see in the top result after the ads that everybody ignores?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have a look at it in a second, but
sure.
I'm making notes for everyone here. But yeah, what is the top result?
Sure. So WISME should be up there. That's why I was asking you to take a look at that. But basically what you see now is the top of the iceberg. So what you see now is our product page, or this is a landing page where people are looking for presentation software would naturally land on that page and would sign up for our product and start using it. But what you don't see is about 1,000 pieces of content pieces that we've written about presentations that each one have an internal link to that landing page. And what happens is that in eyes of Google, they're saying, oh, this is an authoritative resource on presentations. So they have a sense of topical authority for the presentation keyword. Now that when you put out a landing page for presentation software, you have a much higher chance of getting ranked and the top search results for your actual commercial keywords.
And by the way, I can attest, I don't know if I can even show this here on here we go, that if you're listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but I can attest that the top result organically for best presentation software is visme.co. So definitely not lying there. Live on the podcast. So very impressive. But okay, so what you're saying is then it sounds like you have to rank for a lot of shorter tail keywords in order to then rank for longer tail keywords, I should say. Let me say that again. You have to rank for a lot of longer tail keywords in order to rank somewhat for a short tail keyword. A bit like on Amazon, I guess. I mean, it's not surprising because I'm sure that Amazon has copied Google SEO to some degree insofar as it applies to a shopping site rather than a search site.
That's right.
So a couple of things about that.
I
was just going to say one question I've heard, because I've been one of my clients in the 10K Collective Mastermind, a very experienced e-commerce seller, but he's also moved into the SEO world. And I was talking to him about a blog a while ago, and he was saying that one thing he would try to do, rather than deleting a lot of content that doesn't have very good traffic, is to link the very low traffic type keywords sorry, let me put this again, pages which have keywords that will never get high traffic anyway, to try and link them in silos. So I guess it's the same sort of idea you were saying, except that he's saying use the, you know, not very well performing content and link it together into the bigger hub pages, as you call it, and
Oh,
it should prefer better. Is that
I, I
advisable,
believe.
or do you still think that deletion is the right way forward in most cases?
Right. So what he's referring to is what we call a content audit. So every 6 months we do that at both of our companies, at Visme and Respona, where we understand, okay, what are some of the content pieces that have had zero traffic and no backlinks within 6 months of publishing. And those are potentially a good idea to actually revert and do what we call a 3-1 redirect to a hub page, if they have some external backlinks pointing to them. If they have nothing, it is probably advisable to delete. It's something that's completely reliant on the site structure, the industry, and it's not a one-size-fits-all answer to every company in the world, right? So the process of content audits is to either delete, redirect, or keep, and that's something that is a big flowchart that our team uses to kind of understand. So we don't need to talk about that stuff during this podcast because we were trying to give the basics to people just to have a starting point. Obviously, if you are looking to scale things from there, you need to work with a person who's worked in SEO before and knows their stuff to actually be able to implement a lot of them. But right now, we're just talking to people who are just starting out, or they're basically starting off with a DTC website that gets zero traffic. They're actually trying to get some people in the door.
Yeah, that does make sense. We don't want to sort of try and walk before we can run. But it's
That's
interesting. There's
right.
quite a few people probably have got some content up, but they still kind of at early stages in that they're not sure what to do with it. So
Right.
as you said,
Yeah.
that is a different problem. Um, so yeah, talking of services, I guess we ought to just talk about the fact that you guys offer services because, as you say, this is quite complex stuff. And rather than trying to DIY it, and if you're not right in the early stages, or if you are in the early stages but you have better things to focus your energy on, then it might make sense to employ an expert. So what do you guys do to help e-commerce sellers with their D2C sites exactly?
Sure. So we don't actually provide any services, Michael. We are a completely software company. So Respona is basically a platform folks can use that now that you have a decent website and you want to actually get some backlinks to your website, because that's step 3 when it comes to building the right website, is actually promotion. That now that when you put together the right pieces of content and build these landing pages, it's going to be crickets because you're going against hundreds of thousands of millions of other websites. So what you need to do is to start building relationships with relevant publications in your space and incentivizing them to collaborate with you in order to gain mentions and backlinks to your website. And that's a vote of popularity in eyes of Google and other search engines. And the process of finding out what are some of these publications to reach out to, get their contact information and reach out to them is something that Respond help you automate and also do in an efficient manner. And that's sort of a standalone product. So I recommend, if you're starting with an SEO strategy, if you want a consultant, I recommend you to do some research on your own. We don't provide any services. I just wanted to be very clear cut. My goal here is just to educate folks and be able to, but a lot of it can be done yourself by yourself. You don't need to go, invest a ton of cash in another SEO person. I would recommend you to start with normally a base yourself, kind of get a hang of things and understand, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? Because there's a lot of malpractice, unfortunately, in the SEO space, and a lot of people overcharge. So what you want to understand is that, hey, what are some of the basics? What is it exactly we're trying to do? Let's go do it. Up until the point it becomes very hard to scale. We don't have the resources to do it internally. Now let's try to delegate to an agency or somebody who can help us kind of scale. And that way you can actually set clear-cut expectations for people instead of, basically just throwing money at it, if that makes sense.
So the whole question of outsourcing and at what point you do that, and whether you can find an agency within, I guess any kind of digital agency could be hard, can't it? I mean, yeah, I would say you're about right with that. Just in general, delegation, try and do it yourself, and then when you hit a wall or you've got better things to do with your time, it's quite a good time to delegate. There are some situations where if you can find a competent agency, you just delegate from the start. I've had some clients do that with success, but as you say, that's kind of the exception to the rule because most agencies aren't necessarily amazing, and you don't even know what you don't know until you've tried it for yourself. Right? That's probably for me the number one reason
That's
to
right.
get your hands in the cookie dough, as they say in the States. So yeah, I mean, having a way of dealing with backlinks, by the way, does strike me as the most awkward bit. My VA and I, that's another thing I'm doing wrong. I've spent far too little time on getting backlinks. Of course, we have
That's
the
right.
luck of having good guests like yourself, and we get backlinks from the guests. But it is a very manual, difficult process. Anything that helps that is going to be a good thing. So a couple of things that, first of all, people want to use Respona. I guess they just go to respona.com, Respona. Any other sort of ways that people should use it directly, or any other help that you offer?
Sure. So I actually would advise against people to go straight up, sign up for Respona. Save your money. We have a lot of free educational content on our blog. You can still do a lot of what Respona does yourself manually. There's a myriad of different ways in how you can promote your D2C website. Something that we're more than happy to talk about in the second episode that we're going to chat more. But basically, a lot of that requires you to do a lot of manual research, finding the right publications, getting the right person's contact info, and reach out through a different variety of strategies. We actually have a little outreach strategy hub on our website. So if you go to respona.com, respona.com, the very bottom, we have a free ungated piece of content. It's a recipe book of different outreach tactics and strategies you can use to actually now promote your D2C website. And one of those strategies, by the way, Michael, is podcast outreach. And so the fact that I'm here right now is one of the strategies that we outline in the ebook, where you find what are some of the people in your industry who go on relevant podcasts in your space, and you pitch those hosts to go on as a guest, and they turn it into an episode, and you get free advertising to a niche audience, and also you get a backlink to your website because they normally have the episode turned into a written piece of content. So there's lots of strategies like that on the Outreach Strategy Hub, and you can do most of those manually yourself. Again, it's going to take a lot of time, but that's where Responder sort of comes into place to save you time by sort of automating a lot of the dirty manual work so that you can focus more on actually running your business.
Excellent. And by the way, I love the fact you're saying you don't use Responder yet, it's too early, but use our free guide. That's very generous of you. I put a bit of a redirect to keep it easier. So, folks, if you want that very comprehensive sort of set of guides, really, it's amazingfba.com/backlink, which will link through to that strategy hub. Well, I know we're going to talk in our next episode about building an affiliate network, but I think for the moment, people got quite enough to take on board with your SEO tips. So, yeah, lots to take on board, but I'm always kind of excited by the possibility of SEO, a bit like with email marketing. I've experienced email marketing success to a degree myself, so I know how great it can be. SEO, I've seen other people do it. I haven't really experienced it myself. So it's an unscratched itch. I think that's true for a lot of us. What's your final piece of wisdom? What's a question that I should have asked you that I haven't?
Sure. I mean, one final thing I would say is in terms of allocation of resources. So a lot of people are listening to this podcast. So like, oh, we got 3 people. We're all super busy and we don't have time to do any of this stuff that you just talked about. And as I mentioned, there is a very scientific way of figuring out how you need to allocate your time. And the way we figured it out is to first understand if SEO for your D2C site is the right channel. And you answer 2 questions. Are people Googling to find a product like ours? If so, and also if they're aware of the problem they're trying to solve. And if the answers to those are yes, it's almost idiotic not to invest time on your SEO because you're leaving money on the table. Now, once you decide, okay, we need to go after and focus on our SEO and making sure that our website gets traffic from Google, then there's still a scientific process of how much time you allocate to it. And we follow the 80-20 rule here. We spend 20% of our marketing resources on content creation. The other 80% goes into outreach and promotion. So that means we spend basically when we create one piece of content or web page, we spend 4 times the amount of time we created on or spent on creating that piece of content on promotion. Now, if you are a small company, don't have a whole lot of resources, stop producing so much damn content. Produce one piece of content once a month and then spend the rest of the month, the next 3 to 4 weeks, promoting that piece of content and then move forward. So if you don't have enough resources, don't produce as much content. Just do it less frequently, but you still have to allocate the resources in the proportions that I gave you, because otherwise you're just pumping out content that nobody reads, and it's going to yield 0 results. And then you're like, okay, SEO doesn't work. Okay, that's how most businesses go out of business. Is just or just let go of SEO just because they don't do it the right way, allocate the right resources to it to make it successful. Like Respona, we started our website. Our content strategy a little over 2 years ago. And now we're getting about 100,000 people to our website every single month. And it's all coming through our organic channels. We spend $0 in paid advertising and do very little cold outreach. And so the process of getting there is a proven, repeatable process. You're just going to have to do it step by step.
Nice. That's really all good wisdom. I think the provable processing is very kind of reassuring. And I think the allocation of resources is so smart because everything comes down to 80/20, and a lot of businesses can be turned around by applying that. And I'm certainly guilty of too much content creation and not enough promotion. So I'm with you on that. But a lot of people are, I think. I've seen it myself. So thank you for the course correction there. And just final thing to say is thank you, Farzad from Respona, for coming on and sharing your wisdom about SEO. Great stuff.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Michael. It was a real pleasure.
Great. I'm just going to double check my background's not doing weird things. Just give me a minute.
Perfect.
And we will continue to record. I'm just going to turn my video off for a second.
No problem. Take your time.
Right then, let's do this next one. So, affiliate network for Amazon focused products. I've come up with the worst title in the world here, but well, the topic makes sense to me.
No, right. I think that's great. Perfect.
Okay, here we go. Right then. Right, camera to me. Here we go. Ladles and jelly spoons, boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers. Now, we're about to talk about direct-to-consumer website marketing and to a bunch of Amazon sellers, which may sound a bit silly, but my experience is that the bigger the Amazon sellers are, the more likely they are desperately trying to make a DTC site work because they know that Amazon could get suspended anytime, that Amazon has their customers, that Amazon is increasing its ad spend as a percentage of your revenue every damn month, it feels. So it's an important topic to address, nevertheless, for Amazon sellers, i.e. those of us focused on Amazon. Today, we are talking with Farzad from Respona. Respona is actually a software, as a link building and digital PR platform that helps e-commerce businesses get organic traffic from Google. And today, we are going to be talking about a very underused opportunity, which is setting up your own affiliate network, even if you're focused on Amazon. So Farzad, welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Interesting topic. I've talked to one affiliate marketing expert before, and I came away with two impressions. One is this is a really exciting opportunity partly because most people aren't doing it, but number two, wow, this feels quite complicated. I can see why most people aren't doing it. So that was my kind of feeling about it. I mean, tell me a bit about this.
Sure.
Why should we bother with this in the first place? It does sound a bit intimidating.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, what I'm going to talk about in this episode applies to people who are exclusively selling on Amazon and also people who are looking to have a DTC site. And it is something that principles you can apply pretty much for every single one. I'm sort of awestruck by people who go and create an Amazon business and they focus their entire efforts on Amazon itself and do like very little to no promotion off platform, just simply because that is the way people find a product, is that they normally, if you have a need, you normally go into Amazon with the intent to purchase. And as far as searching and browsing goes, a lot of it is oftentimes done off platform. So having basically those touch points within the customer journey goes a long way. Now, as far as the affiliate marketing goes in particular, Amazon has the affiliate marketing platform already built in for you. And a lot of people don't utilize it as often, which is, again, very surprising to me. So Amazon Associates is basically Amazon giving a cut or commission to people who already have an audience that have basically referred that traffic through Amazon, right? So everybody's happy. The person who's referring that traffic to Amazon website is getting a cut. Amazon is getting a cut, and you as a seller is increasing your revenue. So the way you want to go about this is that let's actually go through an example, Michael. I think it would be a very, very good way of elaborating this. So let's say we started a mattress business on Amazon and we sell mattresses, and each one is a couple $1,000s. And one of the first things people do in order to find a mattress, most likely, is going to Google and looking up, hey, what are some of the best mattresses? All right. So one way to try to get some exposure is to get your website up in the rankings. Now, as we talked about in the previous episode of the podcast, it is quite time intensive and difficult to try to get yourself up into search results. One thing you're not paying attention to is that a lot of websites that are already ranking for that keyword are people that are affiliate marketers, and they're actually getting a cut of every referral they're sending to each one of these mattress companies or through Amazon. So one of the first things you want to do, and this is, again, a variety of different strategies you can utilize. One of the simplest ones to recruit affiliates is what we call a listicle strategy, where, for example, if you sell nail polishes, go and look up, hey, what are some of the best nail polishes? And see what are some of the blogs that come up that are not directly your competitors, and reach out to them and say, hey, Michael, came across an article on best nail polishes or best mattresses. And notice you guys mentioned like Casper and Purple and a couple other guys, and we actually have very aerodynamic mattress. I don't know whether that's the right term for mattresses, but super soft mattresses that we sell, and we won an award. And by the way, we actually have a store on Amazon. If you were to sign up for an Amazon Associates program, most of these people already are, if they aren't yet. If they're professional affiliate marketers, most people already have an account. If they were, so you can say, hey, you can go ahead and include our product on here if you were kind to give us a mention. So what happens is that once any traffic, anybody goes through their blog post, finds your product, goes through Amazon and purchases a product, they get their commission directly from Amazon. So you don't even have to touch a thing. You don't have to deal with the affiliate. You don't have to pay the commission. You don't have to touch a thing. Just let Amazon handle most of that. You initiated the outreach to the influencer or to the person who already has a content and already gets a lot of traffic from Google, and everybody wins at the end of the day. So the process of identifying what are some of these blog articles that you want to reach out to, finding the right person, get into contacts, and actually reaching out to them with a relevant, personalized pitch, something that Respona helps kind of automate a lot of that. But again, none of it is magic or rocket science. You can still do a lot of that stuff yourself manually. It's just going to take a little more time.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I guess the nice thing about your software Responder is that it's sort of an accelerator or an efficiency thing. It enables you to scale, but it's not something you have to just start. So
Yeah.
I like it. And I like the low techness of this. Google your main keyword, see who's ranking for that keyword that is not a direct competitor, contact them and offer to make them money. I think that's a
right.
pretty sweet pitch. The nice thing as well, if I understand it, and I know these things shift from time to time, and I'm not, weirdly enough, an Amazon affiliate, even though should be, but I'm an Amazon associate in theory. I just never do anything for it, so that my checks are zero every month. But as I understand it, if you send traffic there and they click on, say, my mattress, and then they don't, people that go ahead and buy that, but they go through and they buy ultimately a different product, then the referrer will still get a bit of a affiliate commission. Is that still true these days?
So I'm not quite sure of exactly the details that deep in terms of how Amazon's affiliate program works in and out of itself. What I'm really concerned about is actually putting your products out on other people's websites, because a matter of fact is that a very small percentage are actually going to convert, and especially if you're selling a high ticket item like a mattress. But when a website like one of the blog posts is getting 10,000 hits a month, then even if you're converting 0.1% of each, that's still a couple of customers every single month from one blog post that you post yourself. And now if you try to get yourself mentioned in a bunch of them, then obviously that multiplies that over time. The nice thing about it is that it's evergreen. So it's not something that just goes away tomorrow. It's not a one-time hit. Once you get yourself up in one of these blog articles, people are continuously researching, hey, what are some of the mattresses I need to buy? And guess what they come across? That blog article. So it brings in an evergreen flow of traffic to Amazon. Now, better if you have a D2C site, you don't have to go through Amazon. There's a lot of cheap affiliate marketing tools that you can set up these programs yourself, like First Promoter is one of them. It's like $50 a month or whatever. And you can basically start your own affiliate program where it generates a tracked link. And then you can basically pass on this link to whoever is the blogger or somebody who has got an audience, and and basically has a blog articles that are already ranking for these keywords. And then once they actually come through this special link, you don't even have to go through Amazon as the intermediary. You can do that within your D2C site as well. So it's applicable both to people who are on Amazon and the ones that have their own D2C site.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm liking the simplicity of this. I'm sure that in practice there's a lot of work to be done here, but first of all, if you have a D2C site and Amazon and you feel that First Promoter or whatever you use is simple enough to set up, what would your first move be? I guess that depends what you're trying to achieve, doesn't it? So tell me about the reality for your clients. I mean, some people presumably would choose to send traffic to Amazon even if I have D2C, because Amazon has like 20x the conversion rates of
That's right.
most D2C, right?
That's
a very
right.
powerful reason. On the other hand, why would people send it to DC with lower conversion rates? Is there a good argument for doing that if you have both alternatives?
Because you don't have to give away the cut to Amazon. And that is the main reason why, as a seller, you want to ideally have traffic coming in directly to your D2C site. Now, the conversion rate, that is definitely something that's obviously variable based on the industry you're in, the type of product you're selling. So if it's the type of item that you sell through Amazon like hotcakes, yeah, why change it? You don't even need to focus on your D2C site. Just get more traffic over to the Amazon site. So it's really something that's dependent on you. You have the number as a seller. What's the conversion rate? What's the sales coming from Amazon versus your own D2C site? And whichever one is going to make you more money at the end of the day is the one channel you need to focus on. Now, the principle of finding these people and reaching out to them with a personalized pitch, that doesn't change. What matters is that you get that done, and where you point that traffic to is really reliant on how well you're running your business in different channels, and whichever channel works best for you, stick with it.
The other thing that strikes me, and I don't know what your experience of this is that if I'm approaching somebody and I can say, I can plug you into our Amazon affiliate program, or you've already got it, here's our product, that's an easy sell because they know how powerful Amazon is and how well it converts.
That's right.
So it's not just the consumer's behavior, it's the perception of the consumer's behavior
That's right.
that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, of course, if they're sending my traffic to my D2C site, they might be thinking, well, I'm going to waste my clicks here because I'm going to send 100 people for every sale.
That's right. Yeah.
So how does that conversation tend to go?
So obviously, the better brand awareness you have, the easier it gets for you to convince people that are bloggers to actually link back to your product. And sometimes a lot of these websites that are ranking for best XYZ product, and this is what we call the listicle strategy, are pretty hard to get, especially if you're in a very competitive industry like mattresses or nail polishes, right? Stuff that is pretty common. So another strategy that works really well in getting some of those, what I call these hidden gems of influencers, people that are not necessarily, I don't like to use the term influencer here because a lot of people think of influencers as like Instagram models and people who post something on their social channels. One thing I don't really like about it is that a lot of these are one-offs, right? Even if Kylie Jenner posts something about your product on their Instagram, you get a ton of traffic to your website, and guess what? Next week, nobody knows who you are. So I like to build businesses that are evergreen and bring a consistent flow of traffic to your websites. And that's really what matters to me at the end of the day, because yeah, you move some product that month, but what about the next month and the following months after that, right? So one of the things that we do, and again, that's something that Respona helps you figure out, is is what we call a competitor backlink analysis, where basically you can run any competing product on Amazon that is selling well, that is directly competing with yours through Respona, and it will pull up all the other websites that people are an affiliate of that particular product. So you can get a list of, hey, here are all the blog articles that have referenced this particular product and is also the affiliate of that product. And the way you can know so, and they don't even need to be the affiliate necessarily, even if they've just mentioned that product in there, because then you can reach out and have a higher incentive. It's like, hey, you can actually join Amazon Associates and actually receive an affiliate commission as well. So what I'm trying to say is that understanding, hey, what are some of these blog articles that are already mentioning a competing product in there, and reach out to these guys, incentivizing them to actually include either add your product or give it a replacement, and send them a free product too, right? if depending on the ticket, how high ticket your item is. And if you're selling keychains, yeah, send them a box, why not? And get your product mentioned there. And that those are normally a lot better because normally you can also sort that based on the traffic they're getting. So the topic of that article may not directly be as descriptive or as obvious as, hey, what are some of the best nail polishes? But they're talking about, hey, what are some of the best beauty trends in 2022? And they're not directly necessarily getting a lot of hits for that nail polish keyword per se, but there's a lot of traffic coming to that page. But they've mentioned you competing nail polish in there. And now if you reach out to that writer or that editor of that publication, actually incentivize them to join and include your product, and by joining Amazon Associates, it goes a long way in getting more replies and I would say results in the door versus just sticking with the top 10 search results for best nail polish, right? So you're going to run out of this pretty quickly. But there's an unlimited number of nail polishes that have quite a lot of coverage that you can reverse engineer and find some really good prospects there.
So just to be clear, you can take the Amazon product link and pop it into your tool, and then it will spit out who's referring to that link, sending traffic.
That's right.
That's really awesome, because I guess that Google is like the front door of the world, isn't it? Everyone's in there, and if you've got best X, then best nail varnish. I don't know why two guys are discussing nail polish, unless that's what you wear at weekends, Farzad. I don't know. I have no knowledge of it, but we're discussing a product.
I use the clear ones.
Yeah, the clear ones. Well, I have no knowledge of this product area, but anyway, or mattresses, but extreme. But either which way, I can see why that's really powerful, because most people aren't going to be doing that. It's fairly obvious that the best X on Google is going to get a lot of people contacting them, and they're probably deluged in emails, and their VA is probably being given strict instructions to make them jump through hoops, like most of the people who apply to be on the podcast these days, for example. But for the guys who aren't contacted so often, it's going to be a much easier conversation, possibly even exciting to them, rather than, oh god, yet another person reaching out. So that's really cool, because there's an old phrase a business coach of mine used to use, which is a buyer is a buyer is a buyer. The best way to know whether somebody's going to buy your stuff is somebody who's already bought your stuff. And the best way to know somebody who wants to do Amazon affiliate type marketing is somebody who's doing Amazon affiliate type marketing, right?
That's right.
I really like that. It's just very simple. I guess you need the tool to do it. Tell us a bit about the tool, because we've mentioned it in passing. You were so kind last episode as to tell people not to use the tool, but we also kind of mentioned what it does. For who is it relevant for then? When should people consider using a tool like Respona?
Absolutely. So let me give you an example really quick. So for example, we actually cater to a lot of agencies and that do these type of work for e-commerce stores. We got a company that's a book publishing company. We have got quite a few of them, but there's like one that was quite interesting for me. They help authors that sell books on Amazon to get more book sales. And guess how they do it? They go on to that top sell category or top best-selling category or best-selling items in that category, and they'll run each one of these books through Respona, and it will pop out all the blog posts, news articles, everything that book has been mentioned in. And then reach out to those writers and say, hey, we just released a new book. Notice you guys that talked about X, Y, and Z book. And for example, if you release a book on business, or Amazon dropshipping, there's like a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel that's gotten a ton of exposure. So you can reach out to, because people who have talked about that book and they've already gotten some exposure and are sending traffic already to that book are potential targets for you to reach out to and incentivize them to work with you. Send them a free copy of that book and incentivize them to actually join your Amazon Associates program and get a cut for every single referral that's sent over to your book. And they charge that book client, thousands of dollars a month for something that Respona helps you do pretty much automatically for $99 a month. So it is something that's worth the effort if you're looking to do this in-house. And it's not rocket science. It's not something that you can delegate to a junior staff member. I always recommend folks, entrepreneurs, to start doing things yourself, kind of get a sense of how to delegate and how much resources it will take. And then you can set a lot better expectations for people you delegate this to and pass it on to someone to a marketing team to do this on an ongoing basis. And so Respona itself, just so I can tell you what it does exactly, is first helping you identify what are some of the right publications you need to reach out to. And then more importantly, who do you need to reach out to at that publication? Who's the editor? Who's the content writer? Who's in charge of the editorial? Get that person's contact info and then sending them a personalized pitch and incentivizing them to work with you. And that conversation opener is really what the main goal of Respona is. Now, everybody starts at $99 a month. That's our pricing. And it basically also gives you a free onboarding session. So we actually sit down with your team and train them how to use it and give you a 30-day guarantee. So for any reason you don't like it, you just get your money back. It pretty much as good as it gets. And we give you all the tools you need to be successful. But if you're just starting out, you have $0 in revenue and you have time on your hand, you're like, hey, I can do this myself. Definitely do it yourself manually. There is nothing stopping you, right? So you can definitely start looking up, hey, what are some of the articles that mentioned that book? You can Google that article. Who is the writer? You can Google that person. You can do some digging around finding that contact. You can manually email them, right? It is going to take significantly more time, but it's not impossible to do manually. Get a sense of the process and start doing it yourself. Get a couple of mentions, sell a few books. Now you're like, hey, this is awesome. We can scale this process. Now it becomes a no-brainer to pay for a tool like Respona. It's $99. So, so that's where I would put it as. It's like, stop paying for all these fancy tools from the get-go. Get a sense of proof of concept. Get some of that stuff out the door yourself, and then you can kind of use these tools to accelerate that by saving time.
Nice. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's, by the way, delegating without doing it yourself is always risky because you don't know whether the person you've hired is competent, incompetent, or just whether you're asking ridiculous amount of work.
That's right.
I have a bad habit of doing that for myself and for others. And then, yeah, you can't really assess the quality of their work if you don't understand it. So, yeah, it's very,
right.
very hard to delegate something you haven't tried yourself. And as you say, if you're starting out, or even if you aren't starting out, but you haven't done it yet, trying to do this yourself, if nothing else will make you appreciate, you put a value, is $99 a month good value? You don't know until you've tried it. If it's taken 20 of your hours and you put a value in your time of, at least $50 an hour, let's hope it's more, say 100, then it's worth a lot, isn't it? And you can't, these are individual decisions, as you say. And so I think you're very wise to frame it that way. But I really love the simplicity of this. It sounds very, very doable. I really like the fact also for anyone who's an Amazon focused seller, it's not a big deal to go on Amazon, get some links from that, pop them in a tool, or manually research yourself if you wish to, and then contact an Amazon, affiliate to say, do you want to use an Amazon? Well, they already know about the Amazon affiliate program. So presumably you just give them a link, and
that's right.
kind of pretty much it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's as simple as that. And I'm very surprised why more people aren't doing this. I'm like, Amazon already has the infrastructure set up. Your product's already in there. All you got to do is to ask people to feature your product and get commission directly from Amazon. You don't have to deal with any of the headache. And just don't do it. And I don't understand why.
I guess they just didn't know about it. So hopefully now we've educated people about it. We hopefully have given some people like a real aha light bulb going on moment there. Yeah, the other thing that strikes me is Amazon's going to like this, which is unusual because a lot of the stuff people do on Amazon to get more sales is basically grey hat. It may not be black hat because that's really seriously stupid. If you want to sell your business in future, any hint of that is going to make it unsellable. So it's really particularly dumb in my opinion. But a lot of what we do is kind of against the grain. Amazon will let you do it for now, but they're probably going to put a TOS update in place for 3-6 months time because they don't like it. This is something they're going to love forever. Why would Amazon not want external traffic coming to your listings? They love it. So this is gonna, it's kind of tacking with the wind, not against it. And I like that as well. So for all these reasons, this is great stuff. So if people want to learn more from you about this kind of stuff, where do they go? What do they do?
Sure. So we have a lot of free educational material, as I mentioned, Michael, on our website, respona.com, respona.com. And we have a ton of free content out there. Definitely go and check it out. If you'd like to connect with me personally, my name is Farzad Rashidi, and there's not a whole lot of them out in this world. So I'm pretty easy to spot there. So you should be able to find me somewhere on LinkedIn. That's normally my best channel to connect with.
Yeah, they're definitely, well, the advantages of an unspellable names like my name, Veazey, Veazey. Nobody can spell it, but if you can spell it, you'll find me online because the other Michael Veazes, that occasionally there are funerals in America involving Michael Veazes, it seems, but that's like the one thing on the front page of Google that isn't me, so join the club.
That's right.
Farzad, I love the simplicity of this. I really, really like it. When it's simple but people aren't doing it, that's a great, great thing to be doing. Absolutely love it. Any other things I should have asked you about sort of this kind of affiliate marketing strategy?
I think that's it. I mean, I always recommend people to stop listening to these podcasts, stop reading, and go start doing some doing. And that normally is the best way to learn how to do a lot of this stuff. And And one thing I'd like people to take away from this episode today, if you're listening to this episode, whenever it comes out, go send one email to one affiliate, one person that you think your product would make a nice fit to on the blog. Just do one and see what happens. And see if you like it. And you go through that process and just get into the habits of understanding, okay, what are some of these places that I could easily place my product and everybody would win. And then almost becomes idiotic not to do it, because then you're just leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I like it. Like it. Action, not talk. There's a great TV program I used to watch called Why Don't You? It's back in the 80s, so I'm dating myself. And it said something like, it was the theme song said, why don't you switch off your television set and go do something less useless instead? So that's good advice for you listening to this podcast. Well, luckily that this is the end of the podcast and of the live as well. So Farzad Rashidi from Respona, it just remains for me to say many, many thanks for sharing some fantastic, actionable tips today for driving more traffic and more sales on Amazon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show, Michael.
Okay, folks who are listening and watching on the replay or live, that's it for today. Thank you so much to our guest. And if you've got any questions or comments, then pop them in. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, where else? Facebook. I'm probably on Instagram as well. So I'll pop the questions in. I will try and scan through them. If it takes a few days, forgive me. We're on a lot of different places. But thanks again, Farzad, for a great live. That was really, really fun.
Absolutely. My pleasure.